history? What skills are we developing when we learn history? What skills are we learning when we are developing mathematical skills? Because if I teach you algebra, you're going to say to me, I'm never going to use algebra ever again when I leave school. So why am I doing it? And I think that
that's exactly what they ask, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Okay. Kids have been asking why, but now they are really asking why, and they're leaving. If there isn't a...
Here's the thing. A lot of schools are now starting to adopt project-based learning, where they are showing how all these different disciplines, they meet together in one spot. And you can then integrate all these learning disciplines and see how they integrate and work together simultaneously. I think that's important because it gives, the content context, which is important, but it also brings it alive and makes it a little bit more realistic. When I look at the math problems that the kids are getting, Johnny has 15 biscuits and he eats another 27 more. What does he have? And some kids will say, well, 15 and 27, isn't that about 40 something? And I'll say, no, Johnny has diabetes. He shouldn't be eating so many biscuits. So the problem is that, you're not looking at a problem that is realistic, because Johnny is not going to eat that many biscuits. You would rather look at problems that are realistic in life. And I think that is when the mathematics comes alive, when the teacher can say to the kids, listen, we're thinking of redoing this classroom and we're going to have to paint all the walls. I wonder how much paint we're going to need. How would we work that out? And then the kids are going to realize that actually, if we know how much wall space there is, we could work out how many liters of paint we need per square meter. We could work out how much paint we need. So they start to see the realistic aspects of the mathematics, and they never question it after that. That's important, that they actually experience it.
You're allowing the opportunity and giving them the environment. And basically, aren't you just asking them a question and allowing them to explore and find the answers to the question that you asked?
Well, it's funny you should say that.
And once they understand and have learned the answers, then they can create something and give it back and paint that classroom. Is that basically not?
Well, absolutely. When I teach my math classes, the first thing I do is I never, ever start with a definition. I never start with an explanation. I always start off with a question, because, if you're going to say, right, this is a numerator, this is a denominator, you've already lost 2/3 of the class, because you are hitting them with fancy terminology and they don't understand it. What you do is you put out a chocolate bar with 18 blocks in it, and you say, how are we going to share that between 19 students? And you let them talk about that. And eventually you say, well, what happens if I chop that chocolate in half? What's going to happen now? So you basically ask them questions, you let them interact and experience the mathematics, and they're going to go, it would be nice if we had some tools to explain the words that we want to use to describe what we are doing here. And you go, well, it's funny you should say that. But I have these tools called fractions. We can actually use them to describe what you are saying. So you're saying that one person, if you take 18 blocks and you're going to give each person one block, they're going to have one out of the 18 blocks. That's great, but now there are 19 people. So what are we going to do about that? So they have to learn to use terminology in an interesting way, but there's no point in giving them the terminology unless they see a need for it. And that's why asking questions is so important.
Thank you. Thank you. Because, I don't think learning happens without asking questions, and that's been something I've been saying for years and years. And unfortunately, kids ask questions so young, but they get into school and it stops. Mm-hmm. They stop asking questions because teachers don't want them to ask questions. First of all, it takes time. They don't have the time. They have to get a certain amount of stuff in every day to make sure that they're ready for the test. Everything is about the tests. Everything's about the test. Maybe this gives us the opportunity to change the focus, not the focus of the learners, but the focus of of our parents and our families, of the communities and of those people, that it isn't about the tests. It's about the knowledge that they're gaining and how they're going to be able to use it, and the excitement and passion they get while they're learning that, because that's what's going to move them forward to becoming lifetime sustainable learners.
Absolutely. Well, isn't it ironic that in the US, state testing is such a big deal, and then all of a sudden COVID-19 hit, and towards the end of the year, the testing stopped. And you know what? The teachers didn't stop working. They continued working. The students still got quality teaching from those teachers. They still managed to acquire the knowledge they needed to acquire. But were the tests important?
But were the tests important? And you know, I think though, in some places in the United States, there are educators who happen to be educators and know how to be able to teach online and use the tools and so forth. But unfortunately, I would say the majority of the educators here, the majority of the teachers worldwide have no clue what to do, because they depend upon the curriculum that's written out and handed to them in the textbook, and all they do is they read. I have actually sat in teachers' rooms where they are piled with books and books and books, and they're sitting there taking the objectives out of this book and putting it into their lesson plans, and they have no idea what it is. And we wonder, then why do the kids zone out? You know, they drop out mentally, you know, and disengage, or they drop out physically. And then the whole explosion that we've been seeing of the suicides of the teens, of the drugs that they're using, or all of these things, you know, when is society going to start listening to what they're trying to
tell? It all depends on where you're coming from. I have this crazy notion that students come to school to learn and not to be taught. So, you know, if you're going to school and you're being taught things, number one, as you correctly pointed out, you know, if you've got a class of 30 children, not everyone is going to understand or absorb that information the same way. So if you're going to teach the same method to 30 students, you're going to reach 2/3 of them, but 1/3 is going to sit there and go, I really do not understand a word you're saying. So if you're not going to modify the way you present content, you're not going to reach every student. But then, of course, when you go online, as you said, many of the teachers struggled for so many reasons. A, they were not able to teach online because they didn't have the right tools or the right experience or the right skills. The other problem is that they were worried that parents were watching them, because now you've got a mom sitting next to the child watching how you teach, and that might reflect on you. And then, of course, you've got teachers that don't have enough data or internet, so the internet quality is patchy at best, and the quality of the teaching was not great. And then you have students where there's one device in the family, and they've got 3 kids at school, and they've all got to get onto the internet to try and learn. There were so many complexities. Here in South Africa, and I'm sure in India as well, poverty is so great in certain parts of South Africa that students were choosing between food and data. If I'm going to buy data to get on for a lesson, that means I don't eat for today. So what do I do? And when you're faced with those kind of choices, it becomes quite obvious. You eat first before you learn. So there are many students that did not have the privilege of being taught over the last month or two of COVID-19. And for us, our year ends in December. So we've got a little bit of time to catch up if things go back to normal-ish. Probably won't go back to normal for the rest of the year. But if we could get some schooling, they might be able to catch up a little bit. But if this is going to continue until December, and we're about to hit our peak in the next 2 or 3 days, I suspect that a large percentage of kids were denied the rights of education because of funding, because of economics, because of circumstance, because of location, because of a whole bunch of things, which is really not
right. You're right, and you and I have worked long enough together to know that probably one of the most important resources in learning with the matrix is our being able to be a global citizen,
Mhm.
and that means you have to have a means to be able to get online and so forth. And so many of the communities and places we work with have, it's not even a choice; it's just not there. You
Mhm.
know, don't you feel that perhaps governments should start to take on the responsibility, particularly given the shift in how things are going, to ensure that it is not no longer a privilege, but it is the right of our students to be able to access learning
Well,
through the
well, here's the thing. Our government, how do you get content to students that don't have devices? So the first step is you need to make devices so cheap and so freely available that everyone has got one. So there's no point in stealing them because everyone's got one. You're not gaining anything if you just take it from someone else. Number two, data and internet needs to be free during certain times of the day, and decent internet speed. I don't mean, if you tell me, oh, I've got unlimited, uncapped data, that's great. But if it's only half a meg and you're trying to have a Zoom call with that kind of line quality, it's going to be patchy at best. So you need to have quality data access. And some of the companies in South Africa, the educational companies, they were trying to zero rate certain online sites so that if you go onto that site, there's no data charges to use them. And I think that is something that the world should have jumped on board. If you take, for example, Wikipedia, if they had zero rated their site, all content on Wikipedia could be accessed on a phone with no data required.
And
So,
how do you do that? How do you do that?
you go to the company and you say to the cell phone companies, if we are using your cell phone company, anyone that surfs that particular site must not pay for any data. And they've made a long list of all the educational companies they would like to zero rate, and they've put it to all the cell phone and internet service providers and said, can you zero rate them?
When I was in traveling in Africa, what is it, Airtel, or I'm trying to think of what it was in Uganda. One of the big internet companies, when I was there, would have these ads on TV, and they called themselves the educational internet service, and there would be this Indian who had just served this beautiful dinner to the people who had come in, and all. And they're all amazed. Where did you learn how to do this? This is beautiful. And she said, I learned to do it on internet. And I kept thinking, if I could have, and I was there long enough, I would have gone to that company and asked them to put their money where their words were. Because only if they're allowing the users to get those services free or at a very low cost as compared to, then they still can't access it. So you can have all the ads you want and say that this is what you are, but unless you make it happen for learners, then it's still a wasted
It's
time.
always about profit. But the reality is that if you think about it, if you had to take an internet company and they had to sponsor 20 schools and put free internet into those schools, that would solve one problem. But the reality is everyone's at home. So how does that help? So what Elon Musk is doing is he's dropping satellites all the way around the earth, and he's hoping to offer free super speed internet all over the earth, which would be amazing if we could take advantage of that.
Yes. But don't you think now's really the time for us to be moving towards that?
It's moving. It's happening.
Moving.
They just haven't gone online yet.
That's right. So, Steve, tell me, how, because you were talking, another thing you said was now that they're in the home, that their moms and their parents are watching and more involved. And my question is, should they not be involved in any case with the learning of the child? And don't we need to, I mean, can we truly change how learning happens without addressing and helping to re-educate parents and family over here?
Well, what's interesting is that these are different circumstances because some of the parents are at home through the COVID-19, which means that now all of a sudden, if their child is learning online, if they are an older kid, let's say middle school, they don't need help. They can go and do all their classes online. My kids do all their classes online. We don't have to go and do any supervision or support. They know exactly how to log on. They know how to do all the things they need to do. But if you are in kindergarten, someone has to sign on for you. Someone has to manage what you are doing. And in some cases, it's complicated because if a parent is working and their child is having a lesson, how do they sit with their child and also conduct a business meeting? And if your parent happened to be a teacher teaching their own class, how do they teach a class while looking after their kids? It is complicated. But I will say that a lot of parents are at home because of COVID-19 and are getting the privilege of seeing their children actually studying at school and learning. And I think it's a great opportunity for them to connect and bond with their children. But in reality, when things go back, they're going to be at school and the parents are going to be at work. They're not going to have that privilege for much longer.
But we still need to start to refocus their thinking on the fact that they're not in school for grades, and that it's the grades that we, because you go out and I listen to parents saying, well, how did your child, what was your child's grade? My child got an A in this, or, I was at the dentist a while back, and it was about October, I think. And the hygienist said to the little child, so what grade are you going into next year? October. So what grade are you going into? And this is what we talk about when we talk about education, and it's not about, did you learn something, interesting? Can you share something with me that you were excited about? Parents don't even do that. Sit down.
If I could just add that new schools are popping up all over South Africa and I suspect all over the world. Number one, virtual schools are popping up everywhere because they've realized that now if we could run a virtual school full time, then kids don't have to go to school at all. They can do all their studying from home. So that is growing incredibly quickly. Homeschool is growing as well because people have joined the Homeschool Association and realized that because of COVID-19, schooling never stopped. They were always learning at home, and maybe that's the right way forward. But interestingly enough, a lot of other new innovative schools are popping up where they've got, for example, grades where if a student wants to do grade 6 mathematics, but they're only in grade 3, they can join the different group. So it's not about the grade that you're in, it's about the content that you're doing. And some of them are even blending 2 or 3 years together because they feel that the content that you are learning is more important than the age that you represent.
Thank you.
This is all happening all over the world.
Age only puts the kids into a specific box.
Right.
What happens if they're not there yet or they're beyond that? All you have to do is keep cramming them back where you want them into that box. That's you're right. That is crazy.
Are we processing like a factory? We put them into primary school, elementary school, then they go to high school. From high school, we push them out to university. From university, they go get a job. That's an old model that has changed a long time ago. Many of the big corporates are not looking at a resume to say, what degree do you have? They're looking to see what skills you have. And I think that—
I hope people are hearing that.
Go look at Google, go look at all the big companies. They are no longer looking at the resume to see what degree you have. They want to know what skills you bring to the table. And I can tell you now that if I've got a degree in mathematics and I go and apply for a job, that says nothing about what I am like as a person, and it says nothing like what I can do when there is a problem. And when they interview me, that will stand out straight away. They'll go, wow, this person is a mathematician, and that's not what we need. We need a problem solver. So we need someone who's going to think outside the box and not be afraid to do so. So I think that this long-held notion that, going to university with all the prestige that comes with it, that is slowly fading away. And now they are looking at what skills kids are acquiring. And the reason I say this is because some kids can go onto YouTube and learn how to juggle, learn how to solve math problems. They can go into Khan Academy and do all the mathematics they want without the need of a teacher. My famous story about this is I did an interview with Amira Villaghagen. And Amira is a friend of mine. She was 8 years old when she won Holland's Got Talent. And at 8 years old, she was singing opera. Now, if you ever watch the episode, and I'll type her name in the chat, you can always go check it out. If you ever go check it out, Amira Villaghagen got onto the stage. She literally, she sang on the stage. They gave her the golden buzzer. She went through to the final round and won. And here comes the best part. They asked her, how many singing lessons have you been for? Not one. Where did she learn how to do opera? YouTube. Now, this is an 8-year-old. So she was smart enough to watch the YouTube video, mimic what she saw. And yes, she's got talent. Don't get me wrong. But to be able to apply that talent from a YouTube video, it tells me now that what would happen if classes were all recorded. And instead of spending time doing live online lessons, you watch the recording at your leisure and you check in with your teacher to discuss everything. And it's what we call flipping the classroom, where instead of doing the work at school and doing homework, what you do is you watch the work at home and you come to school to discuss it.
Yes. And that's,
I think it's far more powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, it is powerful, I think, too. Steve, it's we're halfway through the show. Would you mind sharing a little bit of your approach to mathematics and do a little activity with the group here?
Absolutely, absolutely. So hopefully I will be able to share screen if the host is able to allow me to share screen.
That's not me.
Let's have a look.
Ask for permission and I will give you the opportunity.
Okay, I'm going to, it says host is disabled participant screen sharing. So I think you might have to make me a co-host.
Wait, here we go. No, here we go. It should be okay now.
Let's try, there we go.
All right.
All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to share a screen with you and then this will hopefully make sense to you. Once upon a time, there was a bank, and in this bank, they used to have money bags, and I'll draw the money bags. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I'll label them A, B, C, D, E, and F. And what I'll say to the children is I've got 6 bank bags, and I've got 63 1-rand coins, but obviously, you guys don't deal with rands, so you can call them dollars, you can call them rupees, whatever you like. I've got 63 coins. I would like you to put those 63 coins into these 6 bags in such a way that when I seal the bags, I don't have to open the bags at all. You can give me any number from 1 to 63, and I can give you that exact amount of money without taking coins out of the bag or adding any extra coins into the bags. So for example, let's pretend you put 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, and 13. I now have 63 coins. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah.
And you give me a number. Let's say you pick 20. I go easy peasy. I give you bag A and bag B. You've now got 20. If you said to me, what about 50? I would give you bag A, B, C, D, and E. You've got 50. Yeah. Absolutely. If I said to you 23, you could give me bag A and F or E and F, no problem. But if you said to me, give me 2, I can't give you 2. So what I need to do is rearrange those numbers. So I would give this as an activity to the kids and say, can you please rearrange them? Well, through trial and error and a little bit of guidance, they will come up with this. 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, and 32. So with this bag, I can give you, with A, I can give you 1. With B, I can give you 2. With A and B, I can give you 3. C, I can give you 4. With A and C, I can give you 5. With B and C, I can give you 6. And with A, B, and C, I can give you 7. Of course, with D, I can give you 8. This would give me 9. That would give me 10. These 2 and that would give me 11. 8 and 4 would give me 12. And you could go all the way up to 63.
Wow.
Now, if that made sense to you, and that normally does, I then introduce the kids to a brand new cool trick, which I will email to you if you would like. I will share my screen with you again. This is a magic mind reader that we like working with our kids. And then I'm going to show you how the two connect with each other. So if I ask you to pick, and we'll just choose someone. So let's go with Vahid. Would you like to pick a number from 1 to 63, but do not tell me what the number is?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, you got a number?
Yep.
Okay, right. Is your number on slide A?
Just a sec. Let me just check. Nope.
No. Is it on B?
Nope.
Is it on C?
Yep.
Oh, wait a second. You say it's on C?
Yep.
Oh, is it on D?
Yep.
Is it on E?
Yep.
Is it on F?
Nope.
I know what you're thinking. You would think of the number 28. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, how is it possible that I could know what number he was thinking of? Maybe, I mean, I took a lucky guess. I have a 1 in 63 chance of getting it right. So we'll try it again. Let's go to Nigel. Nigel, do you want to pick a number from 1 to 63?
Yes.
Okay, can you see it on A?
Yes.
Can you see it on B?
No.
Can you see it on C?
No.
Can you see it on D?
No.
Can you see it on E?
No.
Can you see it on F?
No.
Did you choose the number 1?
Yes.
So now how did I know that?
You're amazing.
Well, I would like to think I am, but actually it's very simple mathematics, and we just did it 2 seconds ago, and I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to go back to that little problem that I had earlier, and if I share the screen with you, you're going to go, oh, come on, really? So let's go back over here. I asked you, was your number on slide A? You said yes. Was it on slide B? You said no. Was it on slide C? You said no, 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 and no. So the number that you chose was 1. Now, Vahid, the number you chose was, if I recall correctly, just remind me what number you chose?
28.
28. So when I asked Vahid, choose a number, I said, is your number here? He said no. Is it here? He said no. Is it here? He said yes, 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 and no. And 4 and 8 makes 12, and 12 and 16 makes 28. So now how does that relate to the problem we just did? Well, actually, not everyone notices this, but it was hidden in the screen. Look at the top left-hand corner of each slide. You will notice the top left-hand corner, I have number 1, which is the same as bag number 1. Then I had 2. Then I had 4. Then I had 8. Then I had 16. and I had 32, just like those 6 bank bags. And when I ask you to tell me where you see your number, every time you say yes, I take the number in the top left-hand corner and I add it to an empty jar. So let's pretend you choose the number 18. I ask you, is your number here? You say no. I ignore the number 1. Is it over here? You say yes. I add 2 to my empty jar. Is it over here? No, 18 is not there, so I ignore the number 4. Is it over here? No, it's not, so I ignore the number 8. Is it here? Yes, it is. I add 16 to that jar. So right now we're sitting with a total of 18. And is 18 over there? No, it's not. So the number you chose was 18. Did that make sense at all?
It seems so simple. How is it that you set up the those charts, though? I was thinking that they were just.
That is a good question. And you see, look what happened. You did the trick, and then you started asking questions. How did you set up those charts? And then what you might ask, why stop at 63? Why can't we go more? And quite simply, what I did was I went like this. Let's start with bag A, because as you know, bag A was 1. And if I was going to make 2, I would put 2 over here for bag B. But if I was going to make 3, I would use bag A and I'd put a 3 here, and I would use bag B, so I'd put a 3 there. So the top left-hand corner number is the number of coins in the bag. All the other numbers are the numbers that you can make with those bags. So if I was, for example, going to make a number like 64, I would say 64, first of all, I would have to go and add slide G, and slide G would be 64. And if I was going to make 65, I would put 65 in slide G, and I would add 65 onto slide A, because I would have to add 1 onto the 64 to make 65. So you could literally add an extra slide and go up to 100 and, well, 64, 127 is what you could go up to if you added slide G and filled in all the rest of the numbers on all these other slides. Did that make a bit of sense?
Yeah, I think that's pretty clever, isn't it?
But now these gifts, you know, a lot of people will see these in Christmas gifts and they'll see these cards. So what I do is I send them the PowerPoint and ask them to print it out and go try it on their students. And once they've done it, the kids are wondering, how do you keep working out my number each time? Then you can actually give them the 63 coins and the 6 bags or containers and say, arrange it in such a way, and then show them the mathematical connection between the two, because that's effectively where they developed it from.
So now when you set that up so that they had to put the coins in the bag, and you did the 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 13, had you told them that you wanted to be able to be given a bag that has like 1 or 3 or whatever? Did they know that?
I explained to them, I said, here are 6 bags, here are 63 coins, put them into those bags in such a way that when I say seal the bags, if I ask you for any number from 1 to 63, you can give me that exact amount without opening up the bags and taking coins out and putting any coins in. Okay. And what will happen is they're going to start what we call a simulation. They'll put the coins in the bags, and then their partner will say, okay, I want 8. And they'll go, yeah. And they'll pull the coins out and count them and go, no, that's not 8, that's 12. Okay, well, that didn't work. Let's go back to the drawing board. And eventually, through a little bit of exploration and adventure, they do discover these things. Sometimes they need a little bit of help. And I'm absolutely in support of guidance by pushing someone in the right direction. I'm not going to take you to the front door, but I'm going to certainly point you to the right neighborhood. So at least when it comes to solving the problem, you know how to handle it.
So let me just again paraphrase and point out something I think you said, which is really important. You aren't telling them, as teachers do. I always kind of say teachers tell, educators ask. Mm-hmm. And So you're not telling them how to do and telling them the solution, but you're asking them questions that lead them with their own thinking skills and imagine to find the answers, right?
Isn't that what it's about? And the sense of gratification that they get when they discover the answer, as opposed to being told what to do, you have no idea the impact that that has on the lesson.
Well, first of all, it makes learning coming from where it ought to be coming from, which is from within and coming out. And somehow or another, you've been able to stop that going in one ear and out the other ear, because it goes in one ear, and now I'm actively engaged in trying to figure out what the answer is. It's kind of like what that in-output machine that they have in mathematics. So I'm going to put this in, and something's happening in here, and this is what's coming out, you know. So again, and it's really, I think, something that people need to understand has to change with education and learning, is we need to stop telling the kids and asking the questions for them to be able to find the answers, giving them the tools, giving them the resources to be able to explore them. But once they find that answer is theirs.
Well,
you know,
I mean, just look at COVID-19. COVID-19 is a perfect example of a situation where we can get the health department to tell us what to do. But things are changing on a daily basis. They first tell you to wear a mask, then they tell you not to wear a mask, then they tell you to wear a mask again, then they tell you to wear gloves, then they tell you not to wear gloves. So what is happening is that if we keep telling people things and they are not taking all this information and trying to process it and trying to establish, is this correct? Is it not correct? Maybe I need to ask more questions. Shouldn't we be doing this? Shouldn't we be doing that? I think that the reality is that education, it's not a static thing. It is dynamic, and it is always shifting and changing. And yes, history doesn't change. The facts are the facts. They are always there. The interpretation of history certainly changes, but the facts never change. However, our circumstance is unknown. It keeps changing. You can't prepare someone for that. You need to be able to think outside of the box. How are we going to deal with this? When they said to schools, listen, you are going to go back on the 5th of July in South Africa. You're going to measure the desks 1.6 meters apart and make sure that there is social distancing. Everyone thought, no problem. We're going to follow that. They got to school and realized 30 children spread out 1.6 meters apart. We can't fit them in the classroom.
no.
What the hell are we going to do? So you see, here's a situation where you're doing what you are being told to do, but it makes zero sense.
It makes no sense. Okay.
So I think that this is an example of why the skills of problem solving and creativity and learning to think and ask questions, that's why these things are so important, because they actually apply to our daily lives right now.
Yeah. And Steve, we only have a few minutes left. Will you come and do this again with me?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Anyhow, I'm going to let Cicely sort of handle things to see if anybody has any question that they want to ask you from the group. If they can just sort of raise a hand, and Cicely.
Sure. So I'm going to, so if anybody, if they have a question, if they want to, let me just, hold on, I thought I did that. If you have a question, you can either put it in the chat box, or you can raise your hand by using the reaction, or you can put your camera on and use your physical hand if you would like to ask a question of Steve. I don't know why my camera's not coming on.
Nigel.
Okay, Nigel, please go ahead.
Steve, that's brilliant. Thank you very much. Have you seen the one laptop per child laptop?
Are you talking about a specific brand of laptop?
Nicholas Negroponte, the idea of giving every child a $100 laptop.
So I've seen different iterations of a laptop. My very good friend Kun Timmers, he has got a project out in a rural school in Kenya, where he has built these schools, and everything. Every student has got laptops. they're connecting to internet, they're doing all these things over there. I'm not so sure if laptop per child is the solution. It might very well be. It's complicated because you see, you know, what are we using the laptop for? I do think we need a hybrid. We need physical people in a classroom. I don't think you can do everything online. I know schools that have got a one-to-one device. And let me tell you, when I go into a classroom and I'm trying to teach these kids, they are all playing on their iPads when I come in. They are not focusing at all. I actually tell them to put the iPads away because I want them to interact and engage, but not in a digital way. So I think that a one-to-one device is always helpful in certain circumstances, but I don't think it's the be-all and end-all. And the other problem is which device is most appropriate. There are so many companies that are offering support on all the platforms, but then, you know, if it's, for example, an Apple, and your Apple is a little bit too old, then you can't download the latest software. If you have a Windows thing, and there are, I don't know, problems where they've updated the latest version of the program, but then your particular device doesn't use it, can you improve the firmware on the device? It becomes complicated. You know, so I think maybe, for example, a classroom where you've got a projector and all the kids are working in that classroom, that might solve some of the problem. And maybe doing some work from home on a device will solve another problem. But I don't think that the one-to-one is the only solution when it comes to learning. Hopefully that answers your question.
Other questions? Nigel? Oh,
Neil and Jana, go ahead.
Come back to you, Nigel.
With COVID-19, like the main topic that was raised, I want to know what is your opinion about the increased screen time that we are offering the children? Because that's definitely, I feel that's affecting little kids a lot, because I just received the timetable of my child's school, and it's like from 9 o'clock to 12:40 with 20-minute breather, constant classes, and let alone the TV and other stuffs, video games and all. So what would you say about it?
Well, it's funny you should say that, because obviously this has become a debate on whether or not it could be harmful. And I'll tell you why it's, where people are saying it's harmful, because there's less outdoor time. People are not spending time outdoors. They're just sitting by a computer. It's not great for the circulation. You find that your legs, you're cutting off the blood supply because you're just sitting and you're not moving anywhere. So there's a lot less exercise. So from a healthy point of view, I can't imagine spending the entire day, every couple of hours, working on the computer is good for your physical health. Then, of course, staring at a screen all day long can't be great for your eyes. And then, of course, a lot of people are saying that they are experiencing Zoom fatigue. And that is when you concentrate for too long on all the faces, because we as humans, we pick up visual cues. I'm trying to look at your reactions. Do you understand what I'm saying? Are you appreciating what I'm saying? So I'm looking at, and now I've got to concentrate on all those faces at once. Normally in a classroom, I'm teaching with a teacher behind me, but now I've got all of you in front of me and I'm busy looking at all your faces simultaneously, and people are experiencing Zoom fatigue. So I can't imagine that that is great for your health either. But as I said, the irony is that mom and dad were saying to kids, please, you're spending way too much time on the computer or on the cell phone, please get off. Now there are cartoons going around where mom and dad are saying, excuse me, can you please spend more time on your computer screen? You haven't finished your work yet. So I think it's the new normal for now. I don't think it's going to be permanent. I would hate for it to be permanent. And I also think that teachers then need to learn to reduce the length of their lessons and try and get more done in a shorter space of time. And you can. You see, in a regular lesson, kids make noise and distract you. I can go mute all. And then all of a sudden, you can't distract me. If a child is misbehaving, I just go, bye-bye. and kick you out the room. And then I know I'm not going to have that distraction. So there is a lot more management and easier control over your class. And you can share prepared videos. Instead of writing everything on the board for an hour, I can prepare that and then put it up on the screen straight away. So you can make your lessons more efficient. But I do think that there is an increased amount of exposure to screen time. It can't be all that healthy, but I don't think it's going to be permanent. I'm holding thumbs, it's not permanent.
Thank you. Thank you.
Go ahead, Nigel.
It's interesting on the overload, because I was talking to a philanthropist in California, and he said, I can't talk to you. I've just done 9 hours non-stop of Zooms. And he would never have done that before this. My question is, what do you think of books for learning, please?
Okay, so books I think are important. But of course, are we talking Kindles? Are we talking physical books in your hand? Are we talking reading books on the screen? I think reading is important no matter what device you use. I did a wonderful interview with a guy who created an app for children who are reluctant readers. And basically, it's called Wonder Stories. And Wonder Stories, it starts off with a question.
Oh my
And the
God.
kids read the question and they have to solve something, but they don't know the story yet. So they start reading a bit of the story. And as they read the story, it's only in small little bite-sized chunks. Then the next bit arrives and the next bit. By the time they've finished reading the story and they've answered the questions, they don't realize they've just read a full-on book. They thought they were reading little chunks at a time. So they've used, and he's a guy from MIT, and they've used the science of reading to improve reading. Now, you know, that's something you can do with a digital device. You can't do that with a regular book. So there are advantages of using digital over the standard books, but there's nothing nicer than holding a book in your hand and being able to turn the pages and have that smell of book with you. It's a tactile experience. And you see, you've got to have those books there. So I can read a book to you, but when you've got that physical book in your hand, it's much nicer. But then again, someone will say, no, I disagree. I've got wonderful reading software that as I read, the words are highlighted on the screen. It's helping my child to read. So certain models are going to suit certain people and others won't. It does depend on the individuals.
And that is what is important to remember. And certainly as we have the opportunity to better individualize what it is we're doing with our kids, because in the classroom, individualism really is unimportant and ignored. You do what it is everybody does. It's what happens. And so, yeah. And
okay.
Steve, we're gonna have to wrap up, which is like really sad because there's so much still to talk about and to explore with you. So you promise?
I'll come back with pleasure.
We're going to do this again, and I really like the idea you had about let's just do one that looks at different kinds of apps that we can use. You know, my grandkids have been here doing schooling, obviously, and what we saw was stacks and stacks of ditto papers, literally, and very, very little online. They're just a touch here. They might meet with the teacher, but all they've done in the last 3 months is ditto papers of read this and then write the same thing down here and write the same thing, and I have one grandchild who did all right with that and, sat down and worked from 9 o'clock in the morning on those sheets until 5 or 6 in the evening to do it. And I have another one who in no way, no how could do that. One passed, one failed and now has to do summer school. Okay, and that one that failed that has to do summer school is going to do the same thing that they were having him do when he failed before. Okay. So again, somewhere We have to be able to allow them to be who they are, not who we want them to be.
Absolutely. Well,
Whether
I mean,
we're a parent or a teacher or a community. Okay, I believe that because we continually force upon our kids our expectations and what we want, because it reflects on us. Oh my goodness, if my child does this, then it's going to make me look like that. You know, we have so much re-educating to do in this, and this is the period of time that we can do that, because we, in a sense, have a very captive audience, don't we?
well, completely. But I mean, think about it. And I think this goes for any teacher that already knows this. If you're going to use the same criteria to test the skills and the knowledge from every single child and expect them all to fit the same paradigm or the same structure, then you are totally misguided, because different children learn in different ways, and there are different ways of measuring whether a child understands a concept or not. You know, if I give you a comprehension and you are just taking the words from that comprehension and sticking it on the piece of paper, that doesn't mean you've understood. It means you've been able to identify keywords in the paragraph and you're pasting it into the form that is requiring you to solve it. You know, if I give you a math problem and you go and do 10 steps, that doesn't mean you understand it. It means you are able to replicate what the teacher has shown you 15 other examples of, but that doesn't mean you understand it. So what I would love to see is that you ask a question and you ask like a comprehension. How would we go from this step to that step? Why would we do this? And that shows understanding. Because right now I can put on an app on my phone, I can take a photograph of a problem, and not only will it solve the problem for me, but it'll also give me all the steps. And I can go and stick it and paste it into the document. And then no work was done other than using an app to do it for me. So that doesn't show understanding. It shows that I've been smart enough to use an app. And I think it's key that we teach kids to think differently. And you know, if you're going to take a child with learning difficulties and expect them to learn the same way as everyone else, and then to write the same test as everyone else, and then you're expecting them to pass it, you need to manage your own expectations. I think that's the problem. That, you know, every child has their own learning style. So we need to come up with novel and innovative ways of testing students that apply to them and not from our own expectations.
And Steve, just to put a bug in people's ears for a later discussion, and that is badging and having individual book packs and portfolios, which is not new. It's not new, but not enough people know about it or know how to do it. And what I love about it is it allows the individuals to make choices about what it is they put in their backpack that they want to be able to share to show the knowledge that they have.
Yeah.
And